Hello everyone and welcome to the Underground Network, broadcasting live from LA. This is May 4th, 2015, and we are here to talk about Greece and the political situation in English, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday in Greek. This is not something new to all of you who have been watching this program live. This is the 74th program today, or show, however you want to call it. It still doesn't have a name, it just has my name on it. I speak for myself and I just comment on the situation, particularly focusing on my country, Greece, but also I talk about the Eurozone, the Euro, America, and other issues that might be of interest. And everything is of interest nowadays, but Greece is a special case because I think it's one of the first time in history that such an occupation, economic occupation, has occurred in such a way. It almost looks like Greece, it doesn't almost look, it looks like Greece is a good, is a sort of a laboratory for the type of economic occupation. So within just a few years, they managed to basically take control of an entire country, otherwise supposedly a sovereign country, and they have turned it into a debt colony. So a lot of hopes were there back 3 months ago with the election of the left Syriza party in power. Of course, it's not governing by itself. It has a coalition party, the junior party of ANEL, Independent Greeks, but mainly the majority of the government is a government of the left. So a lot of hopes were there, and I think they are less and less. The hopes are basically dying. I think it's a general. It's one of the general ideas, and I will focus on this today. Just a small recap, just a small, point by point recap of what's happened in the last 3 months and what is ahead. What's ahead is really bad, basically, for the people. Already spoke about the European proposal, probably a German sort of led proposal or plan. That's what they call the Plan B. I talked about last Friday. That was a Greek show, so I'll just sum it up. We know there have been many reports saying that there is a Plan B led by Germany, who basically has sort of wants Greece to have a parallel currency, so basically pay off the debt, the external debt in euros, and then use an internal currency with IOUs to pay salaries and pensions, and in terms of inside the Greek borders, use this parallel currency. Of course, that's a disaster for a country, and it is broadly acknowledged even by the Germany, who actually has this plan, proposes the plan. And so it has predicted that it should help the humanitarian crisis and the poverty. So it's planning on this whole parallel currency program is also going to be accompanied by a sort of Marshall Plan for the people. So that is it's pretty disastrous for for Europe, for supposedly European values, supposed solidarity. One is led to wonder, what kind of world is this? What kind of Europe is this? And what kind of lies we're being fed? But this is the plan. This is the plan for Greece. Whether, of course, you will hear it in the mainstream media or in the Greek media is another story. You will not hear it anywhere, but at least not in a comprehensive, clear way. You might get bits and pieces here and there and sort of make your own, filter and come to a conclusion, but nobody will really tell you what is really going on. So what is really going on is basically the absolute control of Greece by the lenders or the European partners and the IMF. So basically we already know that we've had puppet governments over and over again in Greece. The people came out back in 2010, 2011. They were out in the streets protesting. At some point, a million people, if not more, was out in the streets in Greece protesting, basically sort of canceling the legitimacy of the government at the time, but that didn't work. It was the government at the time, back in 2011 and 2010, responded, and 2012 with the PSI and the second memorandum, the government responded with incredible, with bright police firing tear gas. Never seen before, sort of army-like police force in Greece, trying to basically take control of the whole situation. So the people went back to their house. I think it was a big disappointment. So people, I think, are now sort of disappointed and don't know how to respond to the situation. But I'm going to focus on an article today that was published on Truthout. It's an article by investigative journalist, reporter, and scholar Michael Nevradakis, and it's called Syriza Lies, Broken Promises, and Prolonged Austerity, because what we're seeing today is still austerity. Nobody talks about it. Not the international media, of course, the mainstream media, but not only them. No left media outlet who was supposedly helping out up until the last election, sort of helping out Greece, helping out the people. We're sort of backing a leftist government with anti-austerity government. Even those outlets, which include, The Guardian, Democracy Now! In America, even Russia Today, they're still under, I think they don't get it. They don't see what is really still going on and what's at stake in Greece. So what we do have is prolonged austerity, and that is the main message of this article. Excellent article. It's just taking everything point by point. I will post a link of it at the bottom of this video, but basically it's all in the title. Syriza Lies, Broken Promises, and Prolonged Austerity. This is the article. Congratulations to Truthout, even though this is kind of an opinion article, so it's under that category. It is so accurate. Every single mention in the article is highlighted, so it refers to the source of each argument. Everything stated in the article is backed by evidence. So there is, this is not just an opinion piece that's just saying something and doesn't have proof for it. This has everything in it. So those who refuse to see this are co-responsible for this. For me, as far as I'm concerned, are sort of backing this whole situation. And I'm pointing at the many people on Twitter who will refuse to tell the truth. Up until a certain time, they used to tell the truth to the people, to the Twitter world, the Twitter sphere. They would sort of report news from Greece. They were trying to do some work on the ground. These voices no longer exist on Twitter. Everything is about backing either the government, or if one doesn't back the government, of course, because it's a leftist government, so it's still not a government that's approved by the European Union. You have, of course, all the other people on Twitter who are neoliberal Greek people, so usually probably paid for by someone reporting things against the country. I have never seen this before in the almost 6 years that I've been on Twitter. I have not seen such a complete basically propaganda on Twitter itself. So it's pretty sad, but there you have it. So first of all, what we see is in the international media, and I'm referring to this article. Everything I say here is a reference to the article, sometimes verbatim, so I will quote some things. But basically, we have a pathetic, what the writer of this article calls a pathetic level of political discourse in the mainstream media, in the media around the world, and he calls them apologists for Syriza actions. And it is absolutely true if one watches, especially Democracy Now! or The Guardian or even Russia Today sometimes. So the truth is that when somebody tries to raise an opposing voice, you're immediately categorized as, oh, do you back the previous government? Are you a neoliberal, or are you a fascist? That you're immediately painted as the people fail, not people, but those people attacking people like me or people like the writer of this article apparently need to frame you as something, and they refuse the real discourse. Like, what is the government really doing today, regardless of who they are, whether they're left or right? What are they really doing? So that's what they've done. So just a brief summary. In 3 months, there has been an increase of 42 billion in actually not 2 months in the first in this first 2 months that the Syriza-led coalition has been in power. 42 billion euros. That's the increase of the debt, and these are figures from the Bank of Greece. So let's start with that. 42 billion added to the tab. Now, what we've seen immediately after the election, maybe it just the whole happiness and hope lasted about a week. 1 week after the election, it was a Saturday. We've heard it from the finance minister Yanis Varoufakis, who basically stated, and I think it was Bloomberg, that he recognizes he recognizes the debt. That was the first thing. So it was just 1 week after being elected. All this promise that the debt, there was going to be a debt write-off, a big debt write-off, even though the Syriza party had not said how much of a debt write-off it was going to negotiate. It was talking about a debt write-off before it was elected. But 1 week later, it was gone. And so what we heard is that we got an agreement, and that was later on, February 20th, basically, which maintained the full second memorandum. So the February 20th agreement 2015 signed between at the Eurogroup between Mr. Varoufakis and the European partners is it's the second memorandum. It's the extension of that. And that second memorandum was signed previously back in 2012, if you remember, by the unelected government of Papademos, who had been put in power as a technocrat at the time to save Greece under the excuse that Greece was in an emergency, so it needed to sort of have less democracy. They put that technocrat in power. They voted the second memorandum. It is that second memorandum that on February 20th, 2015, Mr. Varoufakis just basically signed its prolongation. So practically, what did that mean? Later on, we've seen many things happen. One of them being that all state bodies, anything ranging from local governments to hospitals, university, pension funds, all of them have to transfer their cash reserves into the Bank of Greece. In the beginning, it was on a voluntary basis. Just a few days, weeks later, very recently, I think about 2 weeks ago, this temporary, supposedly voluntary, measure became through a decree became imposed. Now, earlier on, the minister, what is he again? Minister of Labor, I think, Mr. Stratoulis, had stated that publicly that nobody will touch the cash reserves. No one. He had publicly made that statement, and later on, just a few weeks later, he described this change of policy of actually touching those cash reserves as a patriotic move. So we hear the word patriotic a lot. The new Greek government, through its ministers, asked for people to pay to pay different things. For example, the unconstitutional property tax as a patriotic duty. They use the word patriotic a lot, but that's only when they use the word patriotic. In general, they don't like to use the word patriotic, only when it comes to money. So except for basically extending this memorandum and voting. There was no voting. Passing this decree where state funds were basically transferred to the Bank of Greece. We're now witnessing, these are two main things that basically there's no difference with what the previous government did, because the previous government also governed by decree, and Syriza was usually standing up against this and pledged never to do this when in power. All decrees were deemed unconstitutional, are unconstitutional. So Syriza was a fervent, of course, opponent of those decrees that the previous governments of coalition Samaras and Venizelos were passing. Yet, when it came to power, Syriza now uses the same decrees, same type of decrees to govern. So, as I said before, the one of the first big promise that was broken by Syriza was the promise that the debt will be repaid timely and fully, and these are the words used by actually Varoufakis. It will be repaid in time and fully. We know that there has been. I've actually dedicated an entire program about this about a month ago. There has been about a swap that was operated. The swap was denied, but basically they sort of got some cash, about 49.9 billion, in return. They swapped local governments, general government earnings with a small amount. So they probably swapped future revenues. They proceeded to swapping future revenues from general government with a certain amount. We don't know how much the amount that was received in cash, but we know that about 49 billion euro were swapped with a small amount, and that was told by Syriza advisor, a legal advisor, then was then denied by the government. But there is a televised interview where this is being stated, and there has been an article where this has been stated. Of course, we only got denials, but what we do know is that the debt now is 42 billion. The Greek debt has increased by 42 billion euros for the past 2 months. Now, on March 15, Tsipras, the Prime Minister of Greece, Alexis Tsipras, spoke about a contract for recovery and growth for Greece. And this was said, I think, after he met Angela Merkel. Now, the words are not innocent. When you talk about a contract and you speak on behalf of a country, this goes under private international law, and that is alarming, because at the same time it means that you recognize those institutions, those European institutions, as being basically superior to you as a government, as a state. So that is a very, very dangerous way, a dangerous thing when we heard about the contract for recovery and growth for Greece, and we keep hearing it. The word contract is not innocent. So again, this is one other point that this new government has been its acts are suspicious. At the same time, under private international law, so it would recognize the foreign institutions, but it also the idea that Germany has for Greece of having this dual currency system and having the external debt in euros and internal debt, salaries and pensions in IOUs, that would reduce the people into poverty. So I don't really know what the contract for recovery and growth for Greece would really mean given these circumstances and given those types of information, this type of information that we have. It's very suspicious. Other things that the Syriza government has done so far, Syriza-led coalition, to be more precise. All this is in the article that I mentioned. Another point is further privatization of the port of Piraeus, privatization of 14 airports, and they are all of strategic importance and economic importance as well. A lot of revenues that will be lost forever. And I wonder who really paid for these airports to be built. Isn't it the Greek people? So these would be privatized apparently, and this is moving forward. This has been green-lighted. Of course, we also know the sell-off of the former international airport of Athens, Ellinikon, even though this government had pledged to stop the sell-off because this is public space. It should have been. There were many talks for years, ever since the Olympic Games, that this whole the former airport was going to become a huge park for Athens because it is public space. No, it's been sold for nothing to one of the Greece's oligarchs, Spiro Latsis, or to his company. So this is also moving forward. The other thing that Syriza-led coalition made possible in this past 3 months is through its defense minister, Mr. Kamenos, who basically comes from the right wing, from the junior coalition of the independent Greeks. Mr. Kamenos put forward a proposal when he came to Washington to exploit hydrocarbons in the Aegean Sea with the Americans, to exploit it 70-30. So 70 for America, 30 for Greece. That was one of the proposals of the new government. Another thing where Syriza has not kept its promises is Skouries in northern Greece, the gold mine in Skouries. I have dedicated many programs on this, and I've showed the destruction of the area for basically private interests, the destruction of an entire forest, the entire fauna and flora of the area, where people, the inhabitants of the area are revolting against it, yet nothing's being done. So I think the Syriza-led coalition has also shut any sort of hopes that the local population had to sort of shut down this the gold mine that is destroying the environment and destroying the environment and the region for years to come. Another thing that Syriza-led coalition has not done, or has done, depending on how you see it, is it still wants us to pay the property tax, what's called enfia. It considers it a patriotic duty. Even though in the first speech that the Prime Minister had in the Greek Parliament after being elected said that he would cancel the unconstitutional property tax, enfia. Now it is considered a patriotic duty to pay the tax. Other things that did not happen and will not happen: the foreclosure of the primary residence is still in place, and nothing will happen. But thank God, there's a huge movement against the foreclosures in Greece. This is one of the strongest grassroots movements, so that there is some hope that people are protecting other people's home. Because we already have a huge increase in homelessness in Greece. At least there are some people helping out their fellow citizens from this destruction. There were talks before Syriza got elected that it was going to reform the police and it was going to ban the riot police, but it announced recently that it's going to create a fully armed secondary riot police squad that will work alongside existing forces. This is a quote from the article. So not only did it not reform the police and stop, ban the riot police, it is actually creating a new armed secondary riot police to help the existing forces. Another thing, and this is a couple more things basically to talk about, is that before the elections, the defense minister, Mr. Kamenos, was talking against Dublin II, which basically is the regulation that was signed by Greece and all other EU countries regarding immigrants and refugees. So it spoke about how unfair it is that every refugee coming into a country has to first become how do you call that? It's called to become legal, or sort of make its papers have like a legal status in the country of arrival. So that's very unfair for all the countries in the Mediterranean, for example, Greece and Italy, where, of course, refugees and immigrants, if they make it, come to the country, and those countries are, it's extremely difficult for them to deal with the problem. So before the elections, Mr. Kamenos was talking about, canceling this or getting out of it. Now he's just calling upon the EU to ask that Turkey basically enforce the Dublin II. Yet Turkey is not an EU member, so how would it enforce a Dublin II regulation since it's not even a European Union member. So basically nothing to be done. There's no light, there's no we don't hear any sort of debate regarding what should be done with this issue, and Greece, like Italy, and other countries, are left alone to deal with a really difficult situation, because the people coming from wars and from areas that in such distress, from Middle East and Africa, if they make it, are living in terrible conditions in the country, are being and of course that there's no solution to this problem. So that problem is sort of like pushed again, and there's no real solution for it. Lastly, it looks like the new government is providing a lot of jobs for family members and for close ones, for partners and spouses. There are names named in the article, and there are links to specific cases. So basically there is nothing new. We have seen this in Greece for decades. This nepotism and the state that basically would accommodate either friends, family, or the electorate, and then just keep it hostage of a situation. So this is what we're seeing again. There's no change. Syriza is not making any sort of effort or any sort of reform to change that situation. Spouses, apparently, friends, family members are being helped, are being given jobs. And I suspect a lot of the people who have stopped talking, journalists who are on Twitter, I suspect they are somehow also accommodated in a way or another, because I cannot explain this silence otherwise. So, and one other thing that, and this is my last thing, one thing that the article states that's very interesting is Mr. Varoufakis's doublespeak. You know, the finance minister is basically a master of saying one thing and doing the opposite. Yet he remains what, as the article cites, he remains a darling. He is very much loved by all the press, international press, left-leaning press. It's almost like the press is also deaf and blind, because we're not even discussing on whether austerity is still around. They still call the Syriza party anti-austerity. Meanwhile, as I've given some of the pointers mentioned in the article, everything just goes on, and even in a even worse, because the people are sort of asleep right now. They're hypnotized. They're not realizing what is going on, or they just either they're not realizing, or they just don't know what to do, because they had their hopes. They had hoped that this government would take them out of the previous situation, but now they either realize that they're in the same situation, or they haven't realized it yet. But the truth to the matter is the people are not doing anything. So so the article states that Varoufakis excels in this radical rhetoric. And he makes all these statements that sound so cool. You know, a lot of them, you can quote Varoufakis all day long saying things that are very, very true. Yet he is not doing anything. He's actually doing the opposite in practice, and he contradicts every single thing that he says. So it's become schizophrenic to even listen to him. I just can't stand it anymore. As much as I think he's very likable as a person, and I think he's charismatic, and it's not a personal thing. It's just that I just can't do it anymore. So And to say one more example, to give a real example of what Varoufakis has done is, on one hand, he talks about the, we will pay the debt in full and timely, in a timely manner. At the same time, he attends the commission, the Greek commission that audits the debt, and states that he stated that the debt is legal yet unsustainable. So, and he offered to give his help to the committee, to the debt committee. He offered to help everyone with data from finance ministry. Yet at the same time, he just states publicly in the international media that the debt will be paid in full. So this is schizophrenic in and of itself. The government is doing one thing and the opposite. There is this truth debt committee. I don't know at what stage it is at right now, because I haven't seen any updates online, at least. So we haven't heard much from it lastly. So there's this thing, but then on the other hand, everything is business as usual. They're supposedly negotiating, but they've recognized the debt, and the debt has increased by 42 billion in the first 2 months. So those are the main points. Of course, we've heard a lot of other promises like no more cuts, we have our red lines and this and that, but apparently so many things are just being they've taken back so many of these things. At some point, the defense minister tweeted something like, I'm going to try and translate from Greece. He said, the red lines have not been deleted. They have just been postponed a little further for now. So this is a tweet by the defense minister, Panos Kamenos, a while ago, but then he deleted that tweet. So basically he spoke of the fact that the red lines have been postponed. So basically we are not going to be doing what we promised the Greek people we would do. It looks like there's going to be more cuts to pensions and salaries. Of course, social services, we're seeing that already. There's going to be VAT tax hikes, even where they promised they were not going to do them. This is basically it. The situation looks horrible and dire, and at the same time you read Twitter right now and it says IMF threatens to cut off Greece's lifeline and things like that. And speaking of the IMF, in early April, says the article, the Greek government went ahead with 448 million euro loan repayment to the IMF. So that was early April. We paid 448 million to the IMF. And at the same time, we were exploring if the debt was legal or not in the Greek parliament. But yet we've seen that a lot of international analysts have stated, and one of them I think is it's mentioned in the article, is the UK debt jubilee, I think, said that the IMF made 2.5 billion euros, I think, if not dollars. It doesn't really matter anymore. I think they're pretty much the same right now. It made money. It loaned money at 3.6%, where to just meet expenses, it could have loaned money to Greece at 0.9%. So these are all practices that are, I don't know how, legitimate they are. We know how the IMF loan was imposed on Greece. I've talked about it for a long time here. Talked about the documentary that features one of the IMF board of directors or member of the board. I can't remember. His name was Batista. He's Brazilian, and he spoke about how basically they changed the rules of the IMF the night before to basically put Greece into the program and accommodate French and German banks. So all of this is very suspicious, but the Syriza-led coalition and its ministers have done nothing to relieve the people. We're seeing a continuation of the previous situation, and it's even worse now because of the debt increasing, because of the situation in the country. The economic situation on the ground is even more terrible. I mean, dire every day. And thirdly, the sad part is the hypnotized Greek people, who I think right now are sort of, I don't know how they don't know what to do, probably. So, or they are completely hypnotized and they still hope and they still wait that this government of the left, which promised so many things, is gonna do something for them. But I think they're gonna be let down. So that's it for today. I was not expecting this is gonna take 40 minutes. I just have, I think, one message here. George, he says schizophrenia, just even the fact that we talk, the fact that a friend here is writing that the fact that the current government is speaking with the killers, with the executors of the Greek people, is schizophrenia, meaning, I guess, from what I understand, that even the fact that this government has accepted to basically sit down with lenders and treat them as equals, not even as equals, he treats them as superiors, is a schizophrenia, because they are the ones who have created the situation in Greece for the past 5 years. Yes, I agree with that. Okay, so thank you everyone for watching. This is a short, no, it's not that short actually. Yeah, I've been talking 45 minutes. I'll be back here tomorrow. I'll be talking about, I don't know what I'll be talking about. There is so much that's being published right now, but it's the same crap every day. I am very tired of reading the same things over and over again. So, but when articles like this, come, they do stand out. So make sure to check out Truth Out, an opinion piece, but God, how accurate, with all the references. Michael Nevradakis, Truth Out op-ed, called Syriza, Lies, Broken Promises, and Prolonged Austerity, because this is what it's all about. Austerity is still here. It's about to get worse because the recession is getting worse, and unfortunately the people, whether they're waiting or they're hypnotized, the people are the ones who are going to suffer. I hope they do wake up before things, because before it's too late. Who knows? Okay, so have a good night, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow, same time here at Underground Network. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.